Hey guys, welcome to the video. John Bodine here with Redemptive Psych, and today we're talking about the needs of the ESTP. Now, if you haven't seen the series intro, I'm going to link that above so that we can just dive right into the type here. I go over all the context that you may want or need to get the most out of this, but I want this to be more to the point. So in this video, we're going over the needs. Needs have two aspects: needs that we give to others, in terms of I want to share this with you, and then the needs we need in return, or that we need to receive. We're going over the three archetypes that I believe are the most relevant to this conversation, 3 of the 8 functions, 3 of the 8 archetypes, and we're capitalizing on these 3 places to kind of expedite this process of meeting needs. I believe if you can meet the needs of the hero, inferior, and critic, then the rest of them will relatively fall into place. Okay, today I'm going to start with the critic, with the ESTP. Now, the critic is our old person, our wise person, but also kind of our bitter person. It has this very interesting journey that can be more bitter or more wise depending on how we use it. For the ESTP, it's extroverted thinking critic, or TE critic. They're very suspicious of other people's thinking. They're very skeptical that other people haven't thought through it carefully. They are critical that other people might be stupid, okay? And they do this because they are very careful and precise and kind of painstakingly thorough when they think through something very carefully with their parent, which we're not talking about today. But that's their critic. The critic needs 2 things. It needs affirmation and evidence, okay? Affirmation is the affirmation of their mission. Remember that the critic is a secret idealist, okay? Even though it's thorny and kind of mean and hard to connect with, underneath that spikiness is this wounded child that's grown up and become old, okay? And what the critic sees is that if people cared about what they care about more, the world would be a better place. So yes, ESTP, if people were more careful with their thoughts, if they grounded their thinking in reality as opposed to hoping for what's best, if they actually did research and were well informed, they would be better people. Yes, in general, that is true, okay? That's the first thing that they need. Affirmation that their mission, your mission, ESTP with TE critic, is very important. Like the world could change single-handedly if people just did put more care into their thinking. Second here is evidence. If you want to get past their critic and connect with the ESTP, you have to pass the critic's sniff test, okay? You have to show and demonstrate that you are willing to submit to the critic's mission, just as they submit to their own critic's mission when they are acting in a responsible way. Okay, the text in blue is what this function gives to others, okay? We need to be a receptive audience with the blue things in order to connect with that function. The text in black is what they need in return, or what they need to receive from us. Okay, the first thing that the ESTP critic specifically gives is get real, okay? They're all about facts. They're all about, are you living your life by reality or by wishful thinking? They struggle with this because they feel trapped. They hope for better lives. They hope for things to get better, and they have these kind of little dreams in their mind, sometimes big dreams of how things could be better. But the way that they become accomplished and successful is by submitting themselves to reality and to truth. And they are skeptical that you are not doing that. So they provide this kind of get realness to them in all aspects of life, particularly when it comes to thinking, knowledge, your worldview. They recognize the implicit danger of you believing false things as it leads to you hurting yourself or other people, and also missing out on a life that's available for you. Okay, selective openness. This is kind of a tricky one because the ESTPs are very concrete. They're very of the earth. They're about what's happening. However, both TE critics have this capacity for a surprising open-mindedness. It's different from the INTP and the ISTP, who are a little more judgy of information, I would say. The ETPs, especially if you have a relationship with them, if you can connect with them, they're more willing to hear you out, okay? ESTPs, for example, are way more open to this personality stuff than ISTPs are in general. Obviously there are exceptions, and I believe it's because TE Critic has this selective open-mindedness where they are willing to hear you out, particularly if you have some rapport with them, if you've built some trust with them. They are willing to try things, particularly when there's evidence for it having an actual impact on people's lives. So ESTPs are known for being really close-minded because they're concrete, and TE Critic, it's not always true. It's really not always true. When they themselves live a life of exploring different ideas and exploring different researches and different perspectives, they will provide that to you. Mature ESTPs consistently test themselves by learning more, by gathering more knowledge to help improve their future and their present. Okay. On this note, this very relevant note of mature ESTPs particularly, they have this thing, they understand that education leads to freedom. Now, it doesn't have to be proper education. They often don't do well in formal education settings, but they begin to learn over the course of their lives that, hey, if I want to have the future that I want, if I want to become all the things I want to be and provide for the ways that I want to for others, you have to know more. So they may get knowledgeable about a certain skill, about investing, about a certification they want to complete, or a general lifestyle of, hey, I'm going to commit myself to education, to learning more, to consulting different perspectives, and recognizing that through that, my chances for freedom grow. My chances to build a prosperous life grow immensely when I am knowledgeable. It's very, very sad that a lot of ESTPs, first of all, think they're not ESTPs, and second of all, they believe that they're stupid. It's kind of weird because you think a high TI user, like the ESTPs are, a high logical user, would think that they're smart. They often don't because they struggle in school, because you have to sit for God knows how long and just memorize information, okay? ESTPs, that is not true. And once they realize that they can teach themselves stuff by listening to other people, by reading this or listening to a podcast, their life, all the doors begin to open for them, usually at that point. Okay, what does TE Critic need from you to get past the critic, to connect with the critic, to have them recognize that you care about their mission? First of all, it's relate knowledge. What this means is don't just talk in the abstract, and this can be hard for like my type, for example, or all the intuitive types to connect with the ESTP because we present things in a theoretical way that doesn't necessarily have teeth in reality. So try and connect it to related knowledge. The best way, in my opinion, to do this is talk about things or people that they know. Relate it to FE Child and SE Hero of the people that they have connections with like personality stuff, for example. Talk about those people. Analyze those people. The ESTP has a great sense for people. It's pretty amazing actually how insightful and aware they can be of other people. So relate knowledge to their experience, particularly their external experience. I've noticed this with ESTPs I've typed or talked to. When I ask them questions about themselves, it's kind of hard for them to turn inward and like examine themselves. They can do it, but it takes a lot of inner energy. As soon as I started asking about other people in their life, they could just talk and they understood so well. So if you can relate knowledge that you may have to the people around them, they're much more likely to let down their critic a little bit and recognize that is probably true because I've seen it in people around me, okay? And then second here, okay, this is probably the single biggest one, especially for TE critics when they're not really, when they're kind of suspicious of you. Be aware of your assumptions. TE critic hates it when people do not know what their assumptions are and they walk around assuming they know the truth, not recognizing that their perception is based off this foundation of unarticulated assumptions. So have the humility to question your own assumptions, be aware of them, be ready to present them. The critic function has a great capacity to be gentle and nurturing when it sees that the person is aware enough within the realm of that critic's awareness. So if you're aware of your TE assumptions, it's going to go a long way with the ESTP's TE critic. And related to that is humility. I said humility plus proof, kind of again showing them some things based on your argument, but in general having this humility. The critic is seeking the humility of other people because it has this wisdom and it wants to shape other people with their critic awareness. Okay, so awareness of assumptions and having a humility is vital for connecting with TE Critic. Okay, I'm going to go to the inferior next. We're going to go in reverse order today. Now, the NI inferior is afraid of making choices. It doesn't know how to make choices. It's afraid of long-term consequences because they're not aware of long-term consequences. Very seldom are they aware of it. And in general, they associate making a choice of committing to a path with losing freedom, okay, and possibly being trapped with things that they cannot foresee. So the inferior wants reassurance, okay, like someone with them to know that if they make a mistake or choose wrong, that it's going to be okay, or at least they'll have some company, right, with SE hero and FE child. They really want people to be with them when they make a choice. And then exploration, okay? These go hand in hand. Having someone with you to make a choice or understanding that the consequences will not destroy your life gives them the reassurance they need to start exploring potential futures and potential choices that they may have or they may want. Exploration is the apex energy for the inferior. If they don't feel comfortable to explore, the inferior will never ever grow. It'll stay in this lockdown, repression, paralysis. It needs to be comfortable to explore in order to grow. Just as a little infant, as the inferior is infantile, needs to be able to explore its space to grow up and become, you know, an adult. Okay, I'm going to start with what the inferior needs. What does NI inferior need from the for the ESTP? I talked about this in the ESFP video, they also have NI inferior. Show them, okay? If you're talking to them about consequences and like abstract things, they're like, yeah, whatever, you're probably stupid, you're assuming all these things. That's not my reality. So whatever you're talking about, go to show them, okay? I talked about this with the ESFP video. Growing up in schools, we had those drug pictures, you know, the before and after for the meth user, like, oh, you know, before drugs and then after. As silly as that may be, that's effective to SE Hero because it shows them this visceral connection that it's hard for them to argue. This is reality. Their hero function is about reality, okay? So show them. If they're thinking about pursuing a certain job, or maybe they want to be an actor or an athlete, show them. Take them to a camp or give them the experience or give them visceral feedback of what it actually might be like. Don't keep it in theory. It's not very helpful to them. And once you show them, okay, once they have that stimulation, that feedback, then they become a little more open to hearing some more abstraction, and they can process that a little better once they have the visceral reality. Help reduce choices, okay? This is, I'm not saying take away choices, but help them think through which choices are definitely not going to get them what they want. Most of the time, you can take 70 to 80% of the choices off the board. Even if you're just taking 30 to 40% off the board, that helps relieve the anxiety. Particularly if they're making a big life choice, help them think through which choices they definitely want to get rid of. And maybe they'll have 3 or 5 choices left, all of which are good, potentially. That's the ideal here. If you can get the inferior to a point where they can make no mistake, all these paths are good, ESTP, then they become willing to explore, okay? So help them reduce choices. No consequences plus partnership. So this is in particular spaces, not everywhere in life. But if you can enter a space where there's no consequences for their choices, then they become willing to explore. And do you know what happens when they're willing to explore? They see the impact of their choices, and it steers them away from certain bad choices and towards things that have a positive impact, or at least subjectively have a positive impact. And the best way to do this is to be there with them, okay? To go do it together. They like to be with people when they're making a choice or when they're exploring something new. Okay, what does NI inferior provide? Even though they can be infantile with their choice, even though they don't want to make a choice, even though they're anxious with their choices, When they commit to a choice or when they go through the process of choosing, what do they provide? Discriminate choice, okay? Obviously, because it's hard for them to make a choice, when they do or when they choose you, it means that much more because it was painstaking for them. And maybe they didn't want to at first, and then they did, and then they chose you. That choice means a lot because they walked through fire to make that choice. So when they make a choice, it usually has a greater impact and a greater meaning. And second here, prosper together, okay? So this is a difference between the ESFP and the ESTP. ESTPs have inferior, okay, and as the ESFP does. When they think towards the future, the ESFP can think more about goals and strategy and checkpoints and accomplishments. The ESTP kind of wants to be that way, but the way that they get over their anxiety is to bring other people with them. If you have other people with you, when those choices are consequential to, and whose success you get to share in, that's bringing in the child, that's bringing in the extroverted feeling, fused with your future vision to bring people together. So when they commit to trying to help other people as a part of their future, it's going to reduce a lot of anxiety. It's going to help them orient much, much better when they recognize that their ability to aspire with their NI is related directly to their relationships, to the people with them, and the prosperity and the healing that they want to bring to others. Last here is the hero function. The hero is our powerhouse. It's our greatest gift from birth, right? Okay. For the hero needs expression. Obviously, if it's our powerhouse, we need to use it, and it needs recognition to admire and praise and be aware of people's ability with their hero. These reinforce each other. They need to express, and they really want recognition for their skill, for their ability, for their competence with creating great experiences, for being reliable and fixing and helping situations and people, but mainly for their ability to shape others or create an impact. Okay, the thing that SE Hero needs the most is reliability, particularly with the ESTP. Well, both ESPs are this way. They need people around them who are like rocks, who are reliable, who will be there because they need to go out and explore, possibly bring those people with them to have these new experiences, these new impacts. Whether it's normal life stuff or in sports or wherever, they need people with them as an anchor for their wind to fly around and go explore, because the SE Hero is like the wind. It's a very powerful wind. Okay, related to that, down for anything, okay, being down for. They want people who are down for anything. They're kind of down for anything, but they're way more down for anything when they have other people who are solid around them. They want to go explore. They want to go see things and do things, okay? Having people who are their anchor and are willing to come with them helps relieve the anxiety. It's not really a choice anymore because that person is with them. They will be there with them with whatever happens. And then next here, stimulation. They always need stimulation. This is one of the reasons that they might get diagnosed with all these things or told they're stupid in school, because people have to sit for hours on end paying attention to some kind of memorization thing. It's not really a good environment for a lot of types, particularly the ESTP. So just knowing that they need environmental stimulation always is very important. Last here is openness, okay? This is about you sharing and being open with the ESTP. They want to share, they want to express themselves often, but they don't feel comfortable because they don't know how you're going to react. They don't know if you're comfortable with them sharing. So you being an open book and sharing and kind of particularly about your experience and what you want to experience or what your experience was, sharing your autobiographical life, being an SI user, that helps connect with the SE Hero. Now, if you're not, then you don't have to just go blabber on, but they are seeking openness, okay? So what I do believe is, even if you're like an NJ and don't want to really be open, if you invest in a little openness, I believe it will have a net positive impact, particularly if you trust this person to connect with them. And then once they see that you are comfortable around them to share, it changes everything, because then they will peel themselves back little by little and share these things that they very much don't want to. ESTPs hate to feel vulnerable. People know that the INJs and the NJs don't like to feel vulnerable. The ESTP really doesn't like to feel vulnerable either. So when you share, it helps them feel comfortable to share back to you, okay? And recognize what you have been through. So being open with them can be a great way to connect with SE Hero. Okay, SE Hero provides competence. They are great in the environment. They are often really, really good with other people too. They make other people comfortable, whether it's in business or in sports or in school, wherever they are. ESTPs are kind of everywhere. People think they're all jocks and whatnot. Not so. ESTPs can really be everywhere. So they bring the standard for competence, for ability, to be able to perform, to do it right, particularly in a performative setting. Like they tend to excel more in sports or in something physical, right? Or in being a mechanic, where they can master the environment around them, which they kind of already do. They also provide connection. This might be a little surprising, but related to the openness here, SE Hero with FE Child, which we're not talking about today, but those paired together are very relational, okay? Now, ESTPs may feel introverted because they're so aware of other people that it's just so much data, even so much experience, even for SE Hero. But they're really good with connection. They want to connect with other people. They want other people to be reliable so they can connect with that person and absorb that reliability into their own lives and perhaps finally come to know themselves. The ETPs especially have a hard time knowing themselves because for several reasons, but particularly because they don't know how to evaluate themselves or navigate their internal world super easily. So they provide connection, which also helps them find themselves. And lastly here, they provide challenge. They will challenge other people. Now, it can be very nice and gentle. I've met ESTPs who are more careful with how they provide that challenge. And then ESTPs that'll just get after and challenge you head on and be that challenger. Regardless of what's happening, of how they do it, they want you to get better. They want you to improve. They want you to know your weaknesses, to own them, and then work on them, okay? So if you can accept that and submit to that to some degree, that's gonna help you connect with the SE Hero, particularly when you're listening to them. If they've known you for a long time or some time, they usually have a lot of insight into you if you're willing to learn. All right, guys, that's the needs of the ESTP. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you want to get typed, you can get typed to my website at redemptivepsych.com. Those sessions are available now. So thanks for stopping by, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye.